Now, let's take a look at question 7. Question 7 is quite straightforward. So it's your cumulative frequency / statistics type of question. There are 120 apples in the box. It shows the distribution. Find the interval that contains the median mass. I got student who got this question wrong. 120, what's the median? Kimi. For even number, how do we find the median? What's the median position? If it's even. It's not 60, yeah. No, I don't want to find the M. I want to know what is the median. If I have 120, the median is determined by which apple or apples? (120) M plus. It's your M plus 1 divided by 2. So 120 apples plus 1 divided by 2. We are trying to find the position. So we are trying to find the median position. We are not finding what the median value is, which is two different things. So your median position is 60.5. 60.5 means we look at both the 60th apple and the 61st apple. In this case, does it make a difference? No. Both the 60th and 61st apple lie in the which range? You should be able to add up this part here. 8 plus 21 plus 27 is equal to 56, right? So here is 56 apples. That means this must be your 60th and 61st must both be here for sure, right? And therefore the median width is, or median interval is 120 to 140. Do not confuse your median position with your median value. They are two different things. Okay? Next, calculate an estimate of the mean mass. Your mean here is always an estimate. Why? Jada, to find the mean, what do I need to do? It's called press calculator. Okay? It's called press calculator. You want to go and calculate manually, can or not? Can. But for 1 mark, why bother? Make sure you know how to press calculator. So press your calculator and give me the median value, please. Sorry, not median. Give me the mean, please. Although, I feel like this question, if I don't go and press calculator, I go and find it manually, it might be faster. Okay, you all should be done pressing calculator, I hope. What is the mean? You cannot forget how to do this. You got what? What do you get? Yeah, but what is your value? How in the world? The lowest mass is 60. Your mean is 25. Good job. Your mean is lower than the least possible mass of the apple. Wow. If you did it by calculation, you will get 117.5. If you did it by pressing calculator, what did it give you? It also gave you 117.5. Your calculator does have this problem where it cannot process the answer if the answer is in the fraction. So if you have a weird fraction like 1/3, for example, right, the calculator will just show as 117.3. So you will normally write it, you could write it as 3SF. So acceptable in this case, is actually 118 also. If you write 118, the examiner will accept it. That's why they always say it's an estimate. Because if you press it, if you use calculator method, sometimes you will round up the value, or you will round out the value, which is fine. Okay? But the exact value here is 117.5, but even the 117.5 is not exact. So sometimes the question that they will ask you is this. They like to ask this question. How come the answer in A part 2 is only an estimate? How come it's only an estimate? Ashwin, even though your estimate is like 25, how do you get 25? How do you get a mean? How do you get a mean that is even less than the least possible mass? Anyway, it's an estimate because in a class interval, right? The mass is not exact. Right? They give you a range 60 to 80. Do I know what's the exact mass of the apples? I don't. I only know the range. So the mass, the apple could be 61. The apple could be 89. 79. I don't actually know the exact mass, and therefore it's always going to be an estimate. Okay? In a class interval. Now, question 3. Estimate the standard deviation. If you found mean using calculator, you will also have found the standard deviation at the same time, right? What's the standard deviation? What's your SD given the calculator? Okay, what's the SD? You would have calculated the SD together with the mean, right? If you press calculator, so you just write down both values at the same time. You don't go and press reset. What's your SD? 22.666. So you round it to 3SF, which is 22.7. So when you press calculator, when you use the calculator function to go and find mean, you will also have found the standard deviation at the same time. That's why they normally come together. You are just supposed to write down both values at the same time, not go and waste time calculating them separately. You got input the frequency, you know. Do you turn on frequency? Do you input the frequency correctly? For exam, those questions are 3 marks. You not? I don't have a problem with what I did with this question. Next, another 80 apples are added to the box. The estimated mean mass is now 110. Explain what this tells you about the masses of the apples added to the box. You can only explain by mean. So the mean mass of the apples added. What do you think the F stands for? What do you think F stands for, Ashwin? Would you like to tell me what do you think the column that says F stands for? What could F possibly stand for besides your result? They give you F, they give you Fx. Which one do you think is frequency? Somehow you take A math. Oh, no wonder why I couldn't do it next time. I'm going to move on. Okay, life goes on. Let's move on. The mean mass of the apples added is what? If you add the 80 apples and the mean drops down to 110, what does it mean? The mean of the apples added is less than 110 grams. It must be less, because if it's more than 110, then even though it's less than 117, it would average out to be in between 110 and 117. So the only reason why it is 110 now is because it's less. You can actually go and calculate what the exact mean is, but the question did not ask for it. So don't, for 1 mark, please don't go and bother. All right, but if you go and calculate it exactly, it's not wrong. Okay? Because you have the original 120 apples, right? So you can actually go and calculate what the mean mass of the added apples is, but that's not what the question wants. Having said that, if you go and calculate, of course, it's not wrong. Now we have a histogram. A lot of students struggle with this question because for some reason, they very long never see histogram, and then they suddenly forget what a histogram means. Your histogram now is a lot easier than what we used to learn. Last time we learned this thing called group frequency. You all no longer learn group frequency. Last time our histogram looks very funny one. Then Ashwin will be like, last time was the age of the dinosaurs. Right? Explain why the range of masses of tomatoes may not be 100. Do you realize it's exactly what the question I was explaining just now? Right? I actually don't remember that they asked this question after that. Now, why is the range of masses of tomatoes may not be 100? So you look here, this is 80. You look here, this is 180, right? So they are telling you that the range, if you look here, is 100. But why is the range not necessarily 100? The mass of the lightest tomato and the may not be 80 grams, and the mass of the heaviest tomato may not be 180 grams. That's it. What does that mean? For your range to be 100, your least heavy or your lightest tomato must be 80 grams, right? And your heaviest tomato must be 180 grams. But it may not be the case, right? Because this is again what we call a class interval, right? Your lightest tomato could well be 99, right? Your heaviest tomato could well be 161. Correct or not? That still falls within the class interval, right? So because we cannot be sure that it is definitely 80 and 180, the range may not be 100. The range, maximum range possible is 100, but it could be less than 100. Okay? There are other ways to explain the question, but I think this is one of the easier ways for students to visualize why it's not the case. All right? One of the tomatoes is selected at random. Find the probability that it has a mass of between 120 to 160. P between 120 to 160. Uh, 120 to 160 is which two class intervals, Kimi? A, B, C, D, E. Which one? 120 to 160. Sorry? You must read your histogram properly, Not B, B is between 120. So it's C to D, So it's only C to D because they say between, right? And you must understand. So this one, you must understand how a histogram is displayed when in a class with. So your first interval is actually normally is displayed this way. It can be displayed this way, or it can sometimes be displayed this way. Either one is actually depending on the question. Right? but normally it's displayed like that, right? And therefore, when you're talking about 120, that means your M must be, this is what it would refer to, and therefore it's your third and fourth class width. Okay? It will be your third and fourth class width. And therefore, this is what? This is 32. Please don't read the numbers wrongly, for goodness sake. As students who read, who got this question wrong because read the interval wrongly, I don't even know how. So it's 32 plus 48. The total is 150. Don't need to go and count. It is given in the question. Then you just press your calculator and leave your answer in your simplest form, please. Now, the question that is hard one, that is a bit more challenging, is part 3. What do we know about part 3? 3 of the tomatoes are selected at random without replacement. Find the probability that 2 of them have a mass less than 120 and 1 has a mass greater than 160. So for 2 of them to have a mass less than 120, what's the probability? What's the probability of mass less than 120? What's the probability here? 30, right? And then what's the probability of mass greater than 160? 40, right? Agree? So the probability P2 is less than 120, 1 is greater than 160, will be equal to what? We deal with the 2 that are less than 120 first. So the first one is 30 out of 150. Agree? There are 30 such apples, right? But the second one now, what's the probability? Actually, no, Jake. The first tomato that is less than 120 is 30 out of 150. Agree? Then the second one will now be what? 29 out of 149, because minus 1 already, right? Then now the probability that your third tomato, has a mass greater than 160, Jake, is what? Greater than 160 is 40, right? Yeah, it's 40. But now it's out of 148, right? But that's not the answer. What do I need to do to this? How many scenarios are there possibly? There are 3 possible scenarios. Let's pretend that I call this apple A, I call this apple B, I call this apple C. So they can be in the sequence A, B, C, right? But they can also be in the sequence A, C, B, right? They can also be in the sequence so the point here is basically you always need times 3 lah. Basically, that's what I'm trying to tell you. The sequencing of the apples, there are 3 ways in which the scenario can possibly happen. You pick A first, or you pick B first, or you pick C first. Okay. So this kind of scenario, you always need to remember the times 3 when you're picking 3 things. So the common mistake is students forget to multiply by 3. Then you must leave your answer as a fraction. Don't leave it as a decimal. So you have 174 out of 5513. Okay, probability, leave it in the fraction, please. Don't leave in decimal.